Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for our Shakespeare in Cyprus collaboration panel. And I'm just so pleased to welcome you all here to what we hope will be a fruitful discussion about the new and exciting collaboration between the Shakespeare Institute and various Cyprus-related arts, theatrical and governmental institutions. I'm very pleased to be hosting this panel with Dr. Eleni Pilar, an alumnus of the Shakespeare Institute, who is co-creating the Shakespeare in Cyprus collaboration with me, and who also works for the Cyprus Ministry of Education and Culture. We are honoured to be joined by, going in alphabetical order, Paris Erotoglidou, Theatre Director and Artistic Director of Target Fresh Theatre Ensemble, Mr. Stephen Lilly, British High Commissioner to Cyprus, Dr. Marios Psaras, a cultural counsellor at the Cyprus High Commission in the UK, who is also a filmmaker and scholar of modern Greek cinema, Nihal Soganji, co-creative director of the Buffer Fringe Performing Arts Festival and administrative officer of the Home for Cooperation in Cyprus, and Maria Varnakidou, theatre director, filmmaker, and co-creative director of the Buffer Fringe Performing Arts Festival in Cyprus. Eleni and I are working together with our esteemed guests on this panel and many other organisations and individuals to create a Cyprus Shakespeare Festival, which will help foster intercultural dialogue, social cohesion, and mutual understanding within an ethos of inclusivity and solidarity on a culturally rich, but still in some respects physically divided island. Thank you very much, everybody. And I'll hand over to Dr. Eleni Pilar.
Hello, everyone. Greetings from Cyprus. Thank you for joining us. I'll say a few words about myself. My interdisciplinary research employs theories of space from a range of disciplines, such as the social sciences, philosophy, and phenomenology, to interpret Shakespearean plays and their screen adaptations. I've carried out a lot of research in the area of Shakespeare and Cyprus, the history of the translation of Shakespeare's sonnets into Greek, and also by using recollections in Cyprus, I've investigated how history and fiction may interweave in Othello. Also, I've examined how Cyprus, at the southernmost extremity of Europe, is constructed as a borderland in Othello. I've also explored productions of Shakespeare's plays by Cypriot directors and how these theatrical representations may embrace the local and the global. Apart from my academic focus on Shakespeare, I work as a cultural officer in European and international affairs at the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sport and Youth of Cyprus. Cyprus has a very diverse cultural landscape and a very complex history. It is beyond the scope of this panel to go into the history of Cyprus. With the Shakespeare Cyprus collaboration, we endeavour to create a series of artistic events which enable community engagement, pluralism and cultural diversity. We also envision interdisciplinary cooperation, stimulating a dynamic dialogue, as is also reflected in the composition of our panel. The Cyprus Shakespeare collaboration aligns with the commitments of international conventions, such as the UNESCO Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions, and the UN Sustainable Goals for Development, which include cultural participation. Thanks to all our panelists and all of you today for joining us for what we hope will be a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eleni. And could we just to give everybody some context, could we go around very briefly to each of you alphabetically? If you could just introduce yourselves and tell us very quickly what institution you represent and what that institution or organization does. So let's go to Paris first.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Eleni, for inviting me to this wonderful initiative. My name is Paris Erotoglidou. I'm a theatre director. I'm currently in Cyprus since 2015. I'm the artistic director of Fresh Target Theatre Ensemble, a theatre company founded in 2010 in Athens. And with Fresh Target Theatre, we've carried out numerous productions in Athens. Our first production was in Athens, Harold Pinter play. and in Cyprus, and we have some small presence in the UK. So I was living in the UK until 2015 and in Athens. So since I'm back, I'm working with my company and as a freelance theatre director.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Stephen.
Yes, hello, Chris and Delaney and everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here and to be resuming a conversation about Shakespeare in Cyprus that I think we began in 2019 and then were a bit interrupted by the pandemic.
Yeah.
I'm the British High Commissioner in Cyprus. That's the same as being ambassador. I've been here for 3 years. My job is to promote and protect British interests across the island of Cyprus. I'm a career diplomat. I've spent most of my career actually further east in the Asia-Pacific region. I'm not a Shakespeare scholar. I'm afraid my degree, though, is in French and German language and literature. Thank you.
Thank you so much indeed. Marios.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marios Psaras, Cultural Counselor of the High Commission of Cyprus in the UK. I would like to also thank Chris and Eleni for inviting me on this distinguished panel. Very honored indeed. So I head the cultural department of our embassy in London, and that means that I work in cultural relations between Cyprus and the UK, collaborating with major cultural and academic institutions and organizations, as well as within our EU and Commonwealth families based in London. We organize or co-organize a variety of events, from conferences to concerts, performances, exhibitions, and of course we support and facilitate Cypriot artists' mobility in the UK, their participation in festivals, and their collaborations with British and international organizations.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. And Nihal and Maria.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much once again for this very exciting panel. I'm Nihal Soancı. I'm the Administration Officer of the Homework Corporation, and I'm also currently continuing my PhD in Social Anthropology at the Pandion University in Athens. I'm particularly interested in carrying out ethnography through alternative and interdisciplinary arts-based methodologies. And I'm also the co-creative director of the Buffer Fringe Performing Arts Festival 2020-2021.
And hi from me as well. My name is Maria Varnakidou. I'm a theater director living in Cyprus and working in Cyprus. My interests include device theater and immersive theater, and I'm more focused on creating work on social change. And along with a wonderful group of people, I'm part of the Buffer Fringe Festival as well, and along with Nihal and with our artistic director Lada Vangelou, I'm a co-creative director, and we'll talk more about the festival.
Excellent. Yeah, we look forward to hearing about that. Thank you so much indeed. Yeah, Eleni, do you want to kick off with the first question?
Yes. Mr. Lilly, we wanted to ask you, in your role as ambassador and high commissioner across numerous countries, you will no doubt have witnessed many cultural events, some taking place through the British embassies in which you were based. Can you tell us, in your experience, how such events have been used to bring communities together? And also, are there any models which you feel would be useful for us to learn from as we progress with this collaboration?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And of course, I mean, all around the world, British embassies, high commissions working with the British Council do seek to kind of promote and use British culture to bring people together, to foster understanding. I mean, the example that I would highlight that I think is obviously very relevant for this event is the absolutely huge event from 5 years ago, Shakespeare Lives, which was organised by the British Council globally, which brought together British embassies and high commissions to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death. And at one level it was about celebrating Shakespeare and his creativity, but at another level it was about encouraging partnerships and conversations between people within countries, across countries. I mean, there were 140 countries linked together digitally to sort of talk about and share ideas on Shakespeare. And of course, some of that's very much, about kind of theatre and culture in its own right, but there's also, I think, a real relevance to conflict and political disputes. Just one of the initiatives that was linked to Shakespeare Lives was the British Council and the Royal Shakespeare Company producing a schools pack to explore themes around global citizenship through the plays and characters of Shakespeare, looking at issues like leadership, power, identity, equality and justice. And that went out to 100,000 schools worldwide. So there is real potential in this area. Also wanted to mention, I'm not sure that it wasn't a British High Commission initiative, but going back to 2015 and the restoration of the Othello Tower in Famagusta by the European Union and UNDP and the bicommunal committees here in Cyprus. That was marked with a bicommunal performance or adaptation of Othello, a bilingual adaptation. And I think, of course, in all of these things, there are themes and ideas to be drawn out from the plays themselves. But actually the most powerful aspect of that simply was the fact that you had actors coming together from both communities and an audience coming across from both communities. So I think there's something very powerful about using culture in general and Shakespeare in particular as a convening force, simply to bring people together. Thank you.
Thank you for
so
sharing.
Yeah.
For sharing this experience of these two very important events which brought communities together and also at a global level. Paris, you had a very highly acclaimed production of Richard III. Your production of Richard III was produced for THOC, the Theatrical Organization of Cyprus. This was the first performance of the history play presented in Cyprus in Greek. Can you talk about the challenges you faced in directing Shakespeare for Cyprus, and in what ways you adapted Richard III to the local context?
Great, thank you for your kind words, Eleni. Well, the challenges were many. First of all, the responsibility of the team to present for the first time this wonderful play in the Cypriot audience in Greek. It was a bit daunting at first, but as we went on, things became, every day became in a way easier. However, there was a big challenge in what do you want to say with this play in Cyprus, and for people that will be watching, many of them, or at least a big proportion of them, I would imagine, watching Richard III for the first time. So the audience, thinking about the audience, at least for me, is crucial when you direct a play. And I was wondering, and I was thinking, what would be the best way to introduce this play and make it relevant to the realities of Cyprus without altering or changing the play. And this, of course, it's not a question that you will wake up one morning and find the answer. But the thing is, one crucial thought was that, each play, I believe, is a reaction to the time and the circumstances around the playwright. So the question was, if Richard III was a reaction by Shakespeare to a certain circumstances and his time, what would be a reaction to today in Cyprus, in theatre? So because it's a history play, I wasn't interested in, the story of the dictator, let's say, of the ruthless tyrant is there. So for me, it wasn't about that. I mean, that it is in the play in itself. So the approach was to approach the history of the play, the historiography, let's say, of the play itself. How, what were the sources that Shakespeare used to write this play? What was the political and socioeconomic environment in which Shakespeare wrote the play? So asking these questions and doing practical work with the actors, we follow the path about the, I would say, the objectivity of history. And of course, there is no objectivity in history. And because in Cyprus, we are, I don't know, there are so many versions of historical events and political events. There was a parallel and an analogy. I mean, is Richard III? Of course, it's not. It's a work of fiction. But you know, there is a myth around the play that, you know, Richard III was this ruthless tyrant, and he did all these horrible things. But when you look into it, you try to understand that it's, you know, it's not like that. So in a way, the connection with the audience in Cyprus, or the environment in Cyprus, is to look into the history of the play, and at the same time look into the history, not of Cyprus, but how we perceive history in Cyprus, and whether our beliefs are shaped by historical objectivities or myths, and how we come to believe something that is not based on facts, on facts. It's based on the interpretation of some facts. So that was the underlying principle for the direction with the ensemble of Richard III.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much
Paris.
indeed. Shall I go? I'll ask the next two questions to Nihal and Maria, because they're both kind of related, I guess. So okay. I'll go to Nihal first. You've done some work, as you mentioned earlier, Nihal, on kind of conflict resolution and reconciliation. I was just wondering what role you saw with organizations like Home for Cooperation, which is this wonderful hub. I mean, I remember visiting Home for Cooperation with Eleni and just seeing just how diverse it was, and people from all nationalities and backgrounds. It's this really vibrant, energetic, dynamic place. And I was just wondering what role you saw for organizations like Home for Cooperation in conflict resolution and reconciliation. And, you know, do you have any personal experiences or examples you can draw from?
Thank you very much, Chris, for this question that builds on many elements, actually. Today, we're joining you from the Home for Cooperation, actually, that was established in 2011. Home for Cooperation is a unique community center located in the middle of the dividing lines in Cyprus, in the Ledger Palace area. And through its programs, it encourages individuals and civil society actors to engage in intercultural dialogue and peace building, benefiting from the power of artistic and cultural tools in transforming societies. So Home for Cooperation essentially aims to act as a bridge builder between separated communities, memories, and visions, aiming to facilitate and offer a space for initiatives that contribute to promoting communication and interaction between people from different ethnic, religious, or linguistic backgrounds at a local, regional, European, and international level. Furthermore, the Home aims to offer its resources to support cultural and educational activities that promote interaction, dialogue, freedom of thinking and expression. And I believe that the freedom to express yourself freely actually plays a very important role in building reconciliation, as people come together to collectively create and to collectively build a space for themselves. Of course, 2020 has been a transformative experience for all of us. It was unexpected and filled with questions and constant readjustments, but we continued our activities despite the circumstances, and peace building, female artistic entrepreneurship, interdisciplinary creation, and supporting the arts through the COVID-19 crisis have been amongst our primary goals in 2020. To give a few examples about some of our projects is United by Sound, which is the name of our project, which uses music for peace building. Also, the Buffer Fringe Performing Arts Festival, which we will talk in further detail in just a second. Also, we continued with our language classes online wherever we could, and our tours also took place whenever it was possible. And in this period, we were particularly interested in providing, exploring alternative and interdisciplinary methods to continue our activities, to bring people together from all parts of Cyprus and the world. For philosophers such as Kwang Ming Wu, home refers to the intersubjective relationships that brings a person into being or existence. So to say that I'm at home means I'm at home when I feel accepted. And I think that Home for Cooperation in this way provides a space for people, for a diverse group of people to be at home, which plays a critical role to build on reconciliation.
That's a really lovely sentiment, yeah. And I did feel that from being at the Home for Cooperation. It's right in the kind of buffer zone, and that's, it's right in the center of things, but it's this amazing hub, this community, bringing people together from all sides. And just to follow on with the second question to Maria, you have a passion for community and immersive theatre, and you've indicated in your career profile, and you mentioned earlier, that you think that can help for creating social change. And I was just going to ask, what you felt about how that might come about, particularly sort of say in immersive theatre or other forms of theatre that you're working with. Can you give us examples of how you see this social change working through the kinds of theatrical projects that you've had experience with, and how that might help us with the Cyprus collaboration moving forwards?
Personally, when I create work, I was always fascinating with the relationship of the actor and the audience, and I am always searching for new ways to create work and produce something more than just have people sit on their chairs and just watch what's on stage. So I like searching and exploring possibilities of engaging the audience more to the performance. And I strongly believe that a tool with immersive theatre is very useful, because it focuses on the personal experience of the audience, and when it's needed and it's used, it's much more effective. And when the audience visits the theatre, a conventional theatre, they always know what's coming, so they know that they will sit, they will buy a program, and they just will watch the show. But with the immersive theatre, the audience is it's asked to take part, to be in the center of the performance. So for me, this imprints more, it creates a bigger effect on them. I don't believe that immersive theatre should be the way of creating theatre. Each director should have their dramaturgical reasons of making the audience take part in a performance. But at the end of the day, as theatre makers, we always try to kind of take the audience into a storytelling journey. And I just wanted to share with you an example that of a performance that happened 2 years ago here in the Buffer Fringe zone, where the festival took actual live plays in the mode behind us. So it's a big moat, and there were tents and different things were happening, and both communities could join. So I was involved in a project assisting and mentoring a group of university academics that they were doing a research on a project about from a village in North Cyprus called Gallinogorni, and the whole research of theirs was the dialect Romega, and they had all this research and they wanted to create a performance out of it. So Elada Vangelou, the artistic director, communicated with me. That was my first collaboration with Buffer Fringe, and I kind of directed them, and we created devised work, an immersive piece of project where we created a garden in the middle of the moat, and the university academics had to perform their stories and to kind of find new ways to make the audience walk in this garden and go from stage to stage to listen to these stories about these people, but at the same time experience it. You know, they had to do things, smell things, see it and observe a small scene, which I think this, and not only me, but from the comments afterwards, it was very effective because they had to walk in this world we created. So it wasn't only just sitting there and just hearing things, but they had to walk in and be part of like the whole experiences and feelings that the people felt while being in the villages and doing the research as well. So yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, that sounds really evocative and a really good model to be thinking about moving forwards into a Cyprus Shakespeare Festival.
Mm-hmm. Great. Marios, your scholarly background and current employment will embrace a variety of disciplines spanning education, film, philosophy, and diplomacy. What role do you see cultural and arts festivals and other cultural activities having in bringing communities together and promoting cultural diplomacy?
Thank you, Eleni, for the question. Well, the way our representatives from Buffer Fringe Festival have described their own festival, I mean, it's ideal. It's an ideal example of how festivals and generally the arts scenes can be such platforms for promoting cultural relations, which is a term that I prefer to cultural diplomacy, because it conveys better that sense of reciprocity, of mutually beneficial cultural encounters. And this is exactly the sort of cultural activities happening at and through festivals. So it's pluralism, diversity, inclusion, cooperation, and meaningful on the creative social encounters, which are the characteristics of such festivals. And this is even more so when these festivals or these activities are inter or multidisciplinary, like the work that the artists are doing at Buffer, for example, and of course international or even transnational, which means that people from different backgrounds come together, co-create and exchange both with each other and with the audience. I think that this pluralism embedded in festivals as a safe space for difference is a way for participants to feel at home, like as Nihal mentioned earlier, because this is how they will be able to express themselves freely and genuinely approach each other.
Thank you.
Fabulous, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and that sort of inclusivity, I know, is part of your kind of the work that you do, Marios. I mean, I know you've done a lot of work on queer cinema as well. And just a quick follow-on from that, I did just want to ask you, you know, how do you see that working, perhaps, say, in terms of something like festivals, you know, incorporating your experience and background in relation to being more expansive and inclusive in the way we do things?
Yeah, absolutely. I have attended, I have participated, I have organized or co-organized many festivals which were truly, genuinely inclusive and diverse. And this is something that we always have in mind when organizing events and festivals at the High Commission in London. And but I would like to mention one revelatory experience when I participated in 2018 with my film as a filmmaker. It was the Thin Green Line creative documentary, which was actually filmed across the buffer zone and part of it at the Home of Cooperation as well. I participated with that film at Queer Migrant Film Festival in Amsterdam in 2018, and it's when I realized that that festival was a safe space that provided underrepresented groups a platform to tell their own stories. And it's when I realized that the point is not really to give voice to marginalized groups. These groups do have a voice, and they have a very powerful, a very strong voice. So what these people need, what these groups of people need, are platforms through which their voice can be heard, through which they can establish networks and empower themselves. Safe spaces, as we said earlier, to tell those beautiful, colorful stories that we need to hear if we are to make this world a better place and a safer place for everyone. And festivals that engage with local communities, including marginalized groups or underrepresented groups, can be and should be such safe spaces. And I feel very proud that at the High Commission, we embrace that mentality. And I'm also very, very happy that we are collaborating actually with the Buffer Fringe. We're supporting Buffer Fringe Festival in its participation in the Imagining Futures project, which is an EU-UK festival network, which is based in London through Unique London and promotes intercultural dialogue. And yes, Buffer Fringe represents Cyprus on that network, and I'm so happy for that.
Oh, fantastic. That's so amazing to hear. It just sounds like such a wonderful initiative. Thank you so much. And I know that Eleni's got a question from Nihal and Maria, but before we, because I know you'd like to show a video in a moment. Before we do that, could I just quickly ask Stephen a question? Because we've got a panel later on soft power, and I'm quite interested to hear Stephen's thoughts on soft power and Shakespeare. This will make quite a nice bridge to later on. And I just wanted to ask you whether you felt Shakespeare was potentially a useful tool for soft power in an ambassadorial setting.
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely. I suppose people interpret the term soft power in different ways, and there's certainly a part of it that says that Shakespeare is part of the UK's soft power, and not just the work of Shakespeare, but everything that goes with it, including, I should say, the Shakespeare Institute. I think, though, that talking about Cyprus is actually a little bit about delinking it from the UK almost, and it's about thinking of soft power in terms of the power of ideas and creativity and culture to bring people together. And I think what's fantastic about Shakespeare is that although you've got the very British dimension, it's actually really sort of part of our whole world heritage. He speaks to everybody really around the world, and here in Cyprus we've got very specific connections. I mean, there's the whole range of kind of Mediterranean connections in Shakespeare. I know the geography is not necessarily wholly accurate, and there's the very specific Cypriot connection, and again the history may not be exact either, but I think for those reasons Shakespeare kind of resonates in Cyprus at multiple levels, and there's a lot more that we can do with it by collaborating together. And I think it is, as I said before, it's partly about exploring the ideas in Shakespeare, but it is actually just, it's about creating opportunities. I think, so much of what is needed in Cyprus is to create opportunities to bring different groups of people together and provide a basis for them to interact and get to know each other. So yeah, there's huge potential.
Absolutely, thank you so much. Yeah, very eloquently expressed that. I totally agree with all those sentiments. Yeah, Eleni, I believe you had a question from Michal.
Yes, I'll proceed with the question, just to say that we also have some comments in the chat. So at some point we'll address those as well. Nihal and Maria, I know you are both heavily involved in the Buffer Fringe Performing Arts Festival. If you can tell us more about this and how the festival creates synergies between different communities.
You're on mute.
Yeah, we have to unmute. So generally, I'll briefly tell you a bit about Buffer Fringe in general, and then Nihal will talk a bit more about Buffer Fringe 2021. So the festival was developed by the Home of Cooperation team in 2014, and with the idea of providing a platform to question sensitive topics, expressing ideas in new and creative ways. This enabled people to engage with one another regardless of the dominant historical narratives and ideologies or identities, which are very politicized and often devised from the people of Cyprus. So the Buffer Fringe Festival was born out of a unique local situation and has established itself as a highly respected international festival since then.
And I think on this note, we would like to share with you two very short videos that we have. One from the 2019 interactive zone of the Buffer Fringe that shows how people physically came together from many different communities, and one from 2020 where the Buffer Fringe Festival became a hybrid festival that incorporated the physical and the online together to fit the needs of the time.
Fabulous. We've got about 3 minutes, so if we can fit those into to the 3 minutes, that would be great.
Okay, great.
But we'd love to see them.
So this was from 2019, and now we will move on to the 2020. Sorry about that.
Okay.
To find the lyric.
Sorry.
That's okay.
it is at the core of everything that we do as human beings.
Various kinds of people being forced to leave home and move somewhere else.
One common geography, the mental geography and also the physical geography, is what we should have in mind when we are coexisting and co-creating.
Oh, it's tremendously exciting. Thank you so much indeed. I've just noticed we're running slightly over time, but it's just so wonderful to be able to see it and to get a flavour of what you do there with Home for Cooperation and the Buffer Fringe Festival. And sadly, we have run out of time. There's so many questions additional questions we wanted to ask, and I know that people have been writing in the chat too. We'll save the chat, and then we'll come back to some of those ideas in future discussions. This is only the beginning. This is really just to introduce you to what we're doing. So we'll be coming back to these discussions. Our esteemed guests will be back again, and anything they didn't get a chance to share with us, they'll have the opportunity to do so. So I just wanted to thank you all again for a fantastic event. Thank you so much for meeting with us, for sharing your passion, your ideas and your energy. And we look forward to further collaborations very soon. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, everybody, for watching and for engaging.
Joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We're so grateful, and we'll also save any questions in the Q&A box for later on. So thank you so much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.